Hyperbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Hyperbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pro Physique Code. Hope you guys are all off to a great start this week. My man Evan and Lexie, we are everyone doing good?
Doing great.
Absolutely.
Me and Evan kind of matched today. We got the gray clear glasses, the pink shirts.
I just noticed that.
Mine used to be red. It's now pink from too many washes.
Is mine? Oh, that's the bikini.
Oh, you got the
I
full on
was a
bikini
Commander
boot.
Sage.
The
Yeah.
Duraja hair flip. Nice.
Duraja hair flip.
Oh, that is so funny. You guys do have like the same glasses. At least it looks like it from this view.
Yeah, mine have been smashed by a child, so the lenses are like barely hanging in there. I can't take these out of the house. Anyway, so
we coordinated, me and Paul coordinated this morning.
Love it.
I'm not going downstairs to change. Not happening. Yeah, so I think lots to talk about this weekend. There was the Ben Wieder, which is the premier kind of natural show, and I think we had hinted a while back that we were going to talk about some of the changes that are happening with the sport and if there is going to be more natural competitions. And I think this kind of confirmed it. I've been to a lot of competitions this year that have gotten smaller. The Ben Wieder got way bigger.
That is really, really cool to see. And, you know, Paul, I was kind of surprised too, like in a great way. I feel like the natural part of the Atlantic coast that was this weekend too was a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought that it was going to be tiny, just because it fell on the same weekend as Ben Wieder, but it was surprisingly a lot bigger than I thought.
It might have been the same size as the Atlantic Coast NPC show.
Yeah.
Considering a lot of those girls didn't do both. I was shocked. I think I probably voiced it talking about it before. I thought it was a mistake to have that show on a Sunday after the Ben Wieder. But apparently people are looking for more natural shows to do. I also attended an OCB show in Tampa a couple weeks ago. One of our coaches, Ben, competed at. They had 150 athletes there.
Yeah. Well, I had my client that did the Yorton Cup earlier this year. I mean, she told me that they told them explicitly that like they had record numbers. So it does seem like there is this big growth on like the not only the natural federations, but like the natural shows. So
yeah, it's I was shocked, honestly, about the Atlantic Coast. I was expecting that show to be over early, and it was all day.
oh, it was, yeah, because I remember standing there and they were really behind. Like they did not get done with Bikini Pros until, gosh, like 2, I think. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and that's when they were supposed to start the NPC finals, I think was at 2, or that's at least when they told the athletes to be back. But yeah, they were running pretty behind. But give your client a shout out too, Paul, because she won the natural overall, right?
Yeah, Taylor Natalia Almeida, she won the overall. It was very close. I actually was like, oh, I think we're not going to get this one. I knew she won her class, but the overall was very good. The young lady that was splitting middle with her had more glutes. Taylor's front pose is unbeatable. And so when I asked the head judge, Jack Sullivan, walked backstage while we were like celebrating, and I was like, hey man, like what was it? What was the difference? Because I was curious. And he's like, that is an unbeatable front pose. And he goes, and she was a little bit tighter in the back. So when I walked them, there was no jiggle on her, and she was just very polished. And I said, cool. So yeah, that was and I'm telling you, like that overall was good. Like 8 girls, all very good competitors. So yeah, it definitely felt like a full show. And I don't think we got done with the natural show and the pros until 8 o'clock on Sunday. Last year I was at that show, same setup. We were done by like 4 o'clock. So much bigger turnout.
Wow. Yeah.
Much
That
bigger
was
turnout.
it was a fun show. It was good.
Yeah, it was a long weekend for me, so like I was ready to be done. But on a normal day, that would have been an awesome day. And Tim Gardner did a full expo there. They had jujitsu, they had strongman, they had powerlifting, they had the people that dress up like medieval knights and bang each other in the head with swords. They had that.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like a very, very small scale Arnold because of all of the extra, like there was the jujitsu, there was, like you said, I don't really like, forgive me for not knowing what it's called, but yeah, where they dress up as like knight in shining armors, and there was that, there was some booths, and then like the stage was at the very end in the back corner of the expo hall, but it was nice.
Yeah, well, I was excited for the Ben Weider too. So Lana and her husband both competed. They did the women on Friday, which is what allowed me to come to the show Saturday and Sunday in Florida. And Eric was in classic physique. There was 25 guys in his class.
Really?
Yeah. And if you
Wow.
look at the guys that won the pro cards, bruh, they are stacked. Like these are some good athletes. Um, and what's funny is, I grew up doing natural bodybuilding. I knew these guys existed. People would always they'll use an example of a natural bodybuilder that's not very impressive and be like, this is
Mhm.
natural bodybuilding. But when you go to, Nate, you have some natural pros too. When you see these guys in person, you're like, yeah, they're very impressive. So, in
High level
DC,
natural guys are very impressive.
very impressive. I mean, listen, the difference between Mr. Olympia and, you know, um, the top level natural pros is just a little bit of drugs, but most people can never look like a top pro without drugs. That's not the difference between a good bodybuilder and a great bodybuilder. Genetics is the number one thing.
Mhm.
You take somebody with great genetics and give them some juice. Now you're talking about Mr. Olympia. Um, so there are tons of amazing athletes out there, and I think Evan, you and I grew up in a different world where we played sports,
Yeah.
and people think like, oh, these are the top 1%. No, these are the people that didn't make it in real sports that are
Yeah.
lifting weights. I promise you, if the NFL disappeared tomorrow, there would be a whole lot of natural
I
bodybuilders people wouldn't believe are natural.
there are some of the guys that I played with the University of Georgia, that if they decided to go the bodybuilding route would have just murdered it. I
Same with
mean,
the women.
just
I mean, look at
yes.
you see women walking around that do sports professionally, and you're like, gee, or even like I'm watching this documentary on Netflix called Sprint. These track athletes are just bubbly,
Mhm.
like that's all muscle.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I
so
ran
that's
track and played football, so I saw both sides of it.
yeah,
And especially the female side, the sprinters and
yeah,
heptathletes and
yeah,
pole vaulters. Yes, when
yeah.
you play
So
sports at a very high level, you see true athletes.
yeah, yep. And yeah, when you grow up around that, when you switch to bodybuilding, it's not a shock. I think if all you ever consume is bodybuilding, you're like, oh my gosh, these people are so muscular. But it's for most of us that get into bodybuilding, it's after playing sports, or it's a for me personally, I was trying to lift weights to be better at sports, and then I realized I kind of
Yep.
liked the lifting aspect more than the sports. So, and at some point we all cap out our talent. Not everybody gets to be Tom Brady. So
Mhm.
then you got to figure out what you're going to do. So the natural bodybuilding, I don't know. It's maybe it's because it's getting more coverage, that it's people see what's possible, or because for me, when I started doing natural bodybuilding, there was zero coverage of it. I happened to find videos that Lane Norton was making called Life of a Natural Pro on bodybuilding.com. They weren't even on YouTube. This was 20 years ago. And so I found a natural bodybuilding show in Florida. I drove 3 hours to watch it and thought, oh, I could do this. Right. So now you're seeing people type, natural bodybuilding, tagging natty, all this stuff. Um, so maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe I don't fully grasp the growth of that side of the sport so much just yet. Why it's happening.
I
Yeah,
understand the female growth side of it more than the male growth side of it. Um, it makes sense for the female side to be growing more.
I think also, the NPC does a really good job at covering all their shows. And I don't know if it's just who I follow or what I follow, but I don't always see a lot of coverage of some of the more like natural federations or natural shows. Like you see pretty much, I mean, nowadays you see every NPC like big NPC show has their own Instagram, like they're promoting it early on. So they do a really good job at promoting and just posting on social media, like covering their shows. So maybe that's why, you know, we don't see.
Definitely the biggest gap between the NPC and the you know, A is the quality of the shows, right? You get on bigger, better stages, better lighting. But you know, JM Mannion basically requiring every show to have their pictures posted within a few days, like that didn't happen even a few years ago. So that is a huge benefit to competing with the NPC. You definitely don't get that with the other natural organizations, but yet, you know, like, you know, you brought this up last week, Evan, like an OCB, they don't have 40 shows in Florida a year. They have like 2. So the people that compete with that organization, they're kind of doing just 2 shows a year in Florida, right? Whereas like in Florida this year, I don't know how many NPC shows, I would guess 40. And that doesn't count Georgia, South Carolina, like, you know.
I think one of the most interesting things that's going to be a big part of the natural NPC that they don't do in some of these other organizations, which I didn't really know until I started coaching more people in the natural organizations with it, is the ability to get immediate feedback from the judges. Most of these natural organizations do not allow that unless you are like the winner. You don't get to go get feedback. You have to email, you have to wait for a response. In some of these organizations that I've been a part of, you have to even pay for judges' feedback on that, what I think is wild.
Yeah, that was Canada. I had a couple clients tell me they had to send in money, then they would get a video, they would record a video for them, and I'm like, wow, that's a money maker. But
I'm not going to name the organization in the States. I think it's dirty how they do that. I don't appreciate that. But I think it's interesting the fact that you get to bring over like the glitz and the glam of the NPC into the natural side of things.
Sure.
And I think that's going to attract a lot of people.
To be fair, getting on the Olympia stage is a career goal for a lot of athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So now these natural athletes have a path to that. I mean, there's every classic physique, men's physique, bikini, figure, fitness, wellness. The only division that they don't allow the natural winner to go to the Olympia is the bodybuilding winner, which makes sense. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure the bodybuilding winner can usually do the classic, right? So
I would assume he could probably make classic weight.
Yeah. For those that are, you know, natural bodybuilding is classic bodybuilding. Like those guys do not weigh enough to be out of the weight cap. I mean, they would have to be completely.
It's very interesting too, Paul, because, you know, my client, Nate, who's the guy that carries a good amount of muscle on him, does classic physique and the OCB. And he had some judges shows telling him he needs to go to bodybuilding. And I was like, I don't understand. He fits the classic. He's under the classic weight cap for that organization, but he just has a lot of muscle and they tell him he should go to bodybuilding.
Well, so I used to promote an OCB show here in Tampa. And when I was promoting that show, they were starting to add classic physique. I refused to add it because all you do is segment the bodybuilding division, because natural bodybuilding is classic bodybuilding. The reason classic bodybuilding was created in the IFBB was because of the big guts and the disproportionate physiques that were getting out of hand, and it was a response to that. But we just saw Chris Bumstead nearly win a pro show coming from the classic physique Olympia champion. He's not that far off the mark of knocking off a top 4 open guy. So I think those lines are going to get blurred, because the job of every bodybuilder is to get bigger and better, right? But you're not going to run into that natural bodybuilding. No one's going to get too big.
I will say this: Chris is also the largest classic physique guy there is too. Like just stature and weight and everything else. He has a really, really suck down to meet that. There's a couple other ones I think, like Ramon, I think could do well.
I mean,
Urs could do well.
Yeah. No, I'm not suggesting that everybody from classic could switch over and do open bodybuilding. But what I'm saying is, like, before this year, your last 2 Olympia champs were 212 champs. So it's not that far removed to say, like, okay, somebody could, like, you're telling me if Chris was determined to become Mr. Olympia, he wouldn't do it in 2 or 3 years?
I don't think he's beating someone like Samson in 2 or 3 years now.
But it would definitely be an interesting experiment for him to put on 20 pounds of muscle.
He'd be a top 5 Olympian for 100%. You give that guy a year and a half, he'd be top 5. Absolutely.
Right. So before we get into the talk about the natural shows, I saw Hani Rambod retired. And all it made me think was, you know, he's been winning Olympias for like 15 years straight. And I don't know, maybe he sees the writing on the wall. Chris is retiring. Samson just got the title. I wonder
Yeah.
if he's just like, yeah, I'm not going to get a title for a while.
Yeah, it's going to be a hot minute, and I think everybody reaches their burnout point to a certain degree, right?
He's got
Hani
three
is obviously,
clients. He's got three clients.
yeah, he also, well, he does three big name clients. He said he's going to step out of coaching the big name people. I think
Okay,
he's
so
still
maybe
going to
he'll
coach
drop back.
some.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I
And
listen. I'm not suggesting that that's not a tougher, but I just thought it was funny.
well, and also too, I think this is the worst placings he's had in a long time too as a coach. Like he didn't have any winners other than Chris, right? But let's be honest, I could coach Chris Bumstead to win Olympia.
Well, I mean,
Like Lexie could, Paul could,
he
we
had
all could
second
cook
place.
against
He had
Chris.
second place in pro bodybuilding and winner in
Yeah.
classic. The year before, he had 1, 2, and 1. So like he
Yeah.
wasn't that far off. But yeah, I think this is the era of the big boys. I think Samson. I think Andrew's going to have another year to come back better. Nick's going to be coming back. I think the Derek and Hottie is going to struggle in the years ahead. So I'll be
I
curious
do.
to see what they do.
Yeah. For sure.
Um,
But yeah,
all right, so
you
let's
obviously
talk about.
you had a good week at the Ben Wieder. I had my client got second. You had some pro cards too, right, Paul?
I got one pro card. Yeah, which
And
yeah,
an
I've
Olympia
I've now
qualification.
gotten 4
Yep.
pro cards at Ben Wieder, so I own the Ben Wieder as far as I'm concerned.
And Lana just looked amazing. And
Yeah.
Brittany. I mean, they both looked incredible. I know Lana obviously got the Olympia qualification. What placing did Brittany? Did she get third or
Brittany
fourth?
got fourth. Brittany got
Okay.
fourth. Listen, I was a little disappointed. She did mess up her posing. She was covering her glute in her front pose, which is like she's got a huge and I was trying to get her attention. She said she felt kind of squeezed. Not to take anything away from the other girls. The feedback was they want her a little bigger. The girl that took second, I wasn't familiar with her. She was from Asia. And the girl that got third actually won the overall at the Arnold Classic 2 years ago. The amateur
Oh,
Ukachi. So this year she actually did the Arnold. I
oh
believe
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you win your pro card if you win the overall at the Arnold Amateur, you get invited. So she's
Yeah.
so when I saw her name on the list, I was like, rut-row, Raggy. Like if she's on, it's going to be a battle. But the feedback was, Lana was just. That was just her day. She was full and tight and, she exudes all that confidence. And I think, we competed earlier this year. So we had a really nice break from August to November for her. The last show we did was that Nashville show. So like we literally were just maintaining and she was her lightest. And I fed her the most I've ever fed her going into this show. So she was just on. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, she looked amazing. I mean, even like spending time with her at the Olympia, you could tell she just felt really good too. Cause I mean, a month ago, that would have put her at a month out. She seemed to be fine, wasn't doing a ton of cardio, was still eating well. So she just seemed like she was in a really healthy spot.
I've coached her for 3 years. And I'll say this about Lana, like, she can maintain low body fat and not struggle. Like I've kept her, let's say she's 127 on stage, 126 at her best. She does not struggle at 129 or 130. I've got her, 30 minutes of cardio, 200 to 300 carbs, like she's fine.
Yeah.
So she's just, she's built for this sport.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. But I'm so
she's a
happy
really good athlete. She's a really good athlete.
Yeah. People that, if you haven't met Lana in person, I think you'll be shocked by how big she is. Like, she's 127 pounds on stage. That's probably at or more than Laura Lee weighs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and how tall is
she's
she?
5'6".
Okay.
So she's tall, but
Yeah,
I'm saying
that's
like,
heavy. That's
yeah,
heavy.
that's what I'm saying. She's very dense, and
Yeah.
our first season together, she was like 121, 122. So she's put on 3 or 4 pounds of stage muscle. So for those of you that are like, oh, natural bodybuilding, you can't listen. If you're a good bodybuilder, you're going to put on muscle. You're going to add muscle over time. So
Well,
she's really progressing how she trains too.
Yeah, and I think it's worth also mentioning, like especially with the natural side of things. A lot of times, I mean, how old is Lana? Because do you know
31.
Yeah, I mean that's still very young, but she's obviously been doing this living this lifestyle for a long time now. So I think that helps a lot of natural bodybuilders. You see a lot
Well,
of
let me ask you this, Lexie, from the
yeah.
female perspective. So a lot, and this is something I can't say people's names. I can't, but you and I have noticed a lot of competitors, especially bikini Olympians that have worked their way up to the Olympia, they sound different. They look older. They look much older than their age suggests, and they look much older than they looked a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. Whereas you look at someone like Lana, who's been at the Olympia now, this will be her second Olympia in 3 years. She has not changed. Like her voice is not. So I'm wondering, is that side of the sport attractive to women? Like,
to me, so absolutely not. And it's actually funny. I'll like, I have a story about this in a sec because it's like very relevant from this past weekend. But like to me, I always wonder, do these people really realize like how their voice is changing, how their appearance is changing? Like not necessarily in a good way because it's not like it happens like, overnight. It's very gradual, like within a year or two. But I always wonder, I mean, because you can look at some people from 2 years ago and put a picture of what they used to look like compared to what they look like now, and like that's when you see the changes. Or comparing the voice, that's when you hear the changes. It's like, oh damn, right? So to me it's not appealing whatsoever. And interestingly enough, when I was on the train this past weekend, I was sitting next to a guy on my way down there, and he kept asking me about bodybuilding and whatnot. And I was on the train for 4.5 hours. And so I was showing him like the different divisions of females and like bodybuilding, and, just like showing him some of the people that do have a lot more muscle and are likely enhanced. And, like from a guy's perspective too, he was like, that's cool looking, but like, that's not very like attractive. So I personally don't find it attractive or appealing to push drugs so hard to the point where your voice is getting deeper. You look like, I don't know. I want to look like I'm young until I'm like 50 or 60. I don't want people to think I'm older than I am.
That's, I think, a big thing people don't talk about when it comes to the female side and the PEDs is not just the voice and the masculine qualities that come, but the aging that happens because of it. It will age you fairly rapidly once you start pushing doses.
yeah,
certain levels.
that's the side of the and I think I could be wrong, Evan, but the thing I've noticed is that it seems like with women, it speeds up the aging fast.
Yes, it does.
I
Yeah.
don't know why that is. I mean, maybe it's, obviously women's bodies aren't designed to have like testosterone levels that are that high. If it does something to the skin,
It's yeah, and it's deceiving too, because I think sometimes when you like, maybe it's just the people I follow, but the people that, maybe we can think of when we talk about this topic, I think it can be deceiving sometimes when you see them on social media, because people have to remember there's such thing as Facetune. There's like, people can edit the crap out of their pictures where it doesn't look like they're aging, but then you see them in person and you're like, whoa, like she doesn't look like she did
in
either.
person, or if they do like YouTube and stuff and you see the behind the scenes stuff, but
Yeah.
the social media stuff, you see their show day pictures where they've gotten the fillers, they've
Yeah.
got V has done an amazing job on their makeup, and it's like they look like a magazine. But yeah, when you're walking around in public or like the day before a show and you catch up with somebody, that's when you're like, I've done these double takes, like, did you see what I just saw? Was that right? Like, because we see these people in spurts every couple weeks, every couple months, and so I think from my perspective, we've talked quite a bit about the numbers shrinking in bikini this year. Obviously, the economics of competing is part of it, but I'm also curious now that I've seen the natural shows growing, if there's going to be more of a trend in that way.
I think so personally, and I know we've talked about this for the past several months about like the decline of numbers. And for a while, I was honestly thinking it was just finances, right? And I think that still is a part of it. But I think now seeing how the numbers for these natural shows are like really high, part of me is wondering if, especially like for a lot of these females, if maybe this year a lot of people kind of started to feel a little discouraged by what they felt like was required to do well. And if they kind of just decided, I don't want to go to that extreme to do well, so I'm not going to compete, I'm going to sit back. I think that would explain why the natural show numbers seem to be so high. And then a lot of shows this past year have been really low. So I think that has something to do with it.
Well, if you're building a career off of this sport, I don't think it's required for you to even get to the Olympia to be successful, right? You don't even have to really even get a pro card to be successful. So I don't know that the demand is there anymore, like, you know, to take it to that level. So yeah, I think just getting on stage, documenting that process, learning about yourself, putting in that effort, that can build you a brand right there. You don't have to be Miss Bikini Olympia to build a brand. Um, you know, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. Obviously, everyone knows who Laura Lee Chapados is because of her, you know, ascent to Miss Bikini Olympia and her documenting her journey over the years. But I would argue that one of the most popular bikini pros is Phoebe Hagen. You know, and she's been as high as I think 9th in the world. You know, so she's had some success, but it's not like every year she's in the first call outs at the Olympia. But when she walks on stage, she gets the loudest cheer. Why is that? Because she puts out so much content and she documents her stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, bikini competitors that I can think of that, I mean, I don't even sometimes I don't even know like what their placings have been. I just follow them because I like their personality, I like their authenticity, I like how, you know, they document their journey, whether it be on YouTube or like the content they put out on Instagram. So yeah, I think and the cool thing about this sport and industry too is there's so many ways to be involved, right? Whether it's obviously competing as an athlete, but there's coaching, there's, you know, you can be involved with different brands and go to these, you know, go to expos. So there's a lot of different ways you can be involved, which I think is really neat too.
Yeah. Oh, we were supposed to mention at the beginning of the podcast, but we have our dates for the Command the Stage. So if you guys are
Yes.
interested, we'll be putting out details soon. Comment below if you're interested. I'd love to just hear, you know, get a gauge. I think we're going to cap it at about 30 people. Me, Evan, Lexie will be there. Dr. Joe Klemzeski, the godfather of contest prep. He invented the term peak week. Okay. This guy has been around forever, over 500 pro cards. He's got multiple PhDs. If you're not familiar with Dr. Joe, it'll be a great benefit to get to know him. Dr. Brett Contreras, we're going to be having it at the Glute Lab in Fort Lauderdale. It is going to be the second week of March. So yeah,
I am so excited. I loved getting to experience the Glute Lab this past weekend for the first time. I felt like a kid in a candy shop.
it's weird that you've never been to the Glute Lab.
I know. And you know what, Paul, I went back. So you saw we were there at the same time on Saturday.
Saturday.
No, Friday, I think. Yeah. No,
No,
Saturday.
Friday I was at Ben Wieder. Saturday.
That's right. But I went back on Sunday and I got there, Brett was there, and then it was just me by myself, and I felt like so like I was just like a kid in a candy shop. It was so fun. It is a really, really neat place.
Did he train with you at all?
Not when I got there on Sunday, partly because I had upper body, so like because I
Oh,
trained the day before,
Brett,
so
don't care.
right. Yeah, but Brett was there for like 10 minutes and then he had to go back to finals. But I told him, I'm like, I feel like it's a sin training upper body at the glute lab, but I had literally done glutes the day before. So, you know, but
Yeah, yeah. He actually has a really good upper body now that he's added that front section. I did a full upper body day in there on Saturday when I went. So yeah, it's a big ass gym and there's no one in there. There's more camera holders than there are people.
right. Oh my God, that was so cool. And I totally knew he was going to have this because I thought to myself before going on this trip, I'm like, oh, should I bring my tripod? And then I'm like, no, Brett will have one. And like we get there and there's like 10 just sitting there in the corner to choose from. So that was funny. But yeah, it's a really neat place. Super clean. Love the aesthetics, like the little details, the lights, I loved it. So I'm so excited to hear that that's where we're doing the command
Yeah.
stage.
And before anybody asks, it's private. It's not open to the public. You can't pay to go there. So yeah, everyone, you know, it's kind of invite only. So him allowing us to do our command the stage there is going to be amazing. There's also so much to do in Fort Lauderdale in March. The weather will be beautiful. It'll be a really good event. We'll have some, you know, we're going to have dinner planned. We'll have some social events.
Yeah.
It's going to start Friday and it's going to be all day Saturday and then, you know, the first half of Sunday based on people's travel schedule. But yeah, it's going to be
It
good.
was I like the area where the gym is at too, because it's very walkable. There was, and I mean, it was a safe area. It wasn't like, you know, you couldn't walk around. I mean, I felt fine, at least when I was walking around. So yeah, it's a neat area. In fact, I was kind of thinking, I'm like, you know, if I ever just need a change of scenery, I think it'd be a cool place to move to, you know, within walking distance of Brett's gym.
Yep, he's generous like that. He just lets people train there. So, so yeah, we'll be planning for that. But the whole weekend for me centered around Ben Wieder, which let's talk about the rule changes for Ben Wieder this year. Because in the
Yes.
past, they gave out 2 pro cards. This year they gave out 4. So in the past, they gave out a Masters pro card and an Open pro card. And the Masters pro card, the year that Brittany won it, she won the over 35 overall. And then she went up against the over 40 and the over 50 winner, which I felt was a little unfair, right? Like you would expect the younger athlete to win that, and she did. This year, they did an over 40 pro card for the overall winner, an over 35 pro card for the overall winner. And then in the Open, they did the overall winner and second, like the Arnold top 2. So they gave out 4 pro cards for bikini. I believe they did the same thing for men's physique and for classic physique. I didn't check all the other divisions. I think it was based on number of entries. But once again, Masters bikini was huge, which has been the trend. And actually, you and I, Lexie, have noticed the last couple shows, the Clash, the Atlantic Coast, the bikini numbers have come way up, especially novice and Masters.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Clash a couple weekends ago. True Novice was huge, and I loved
Yeah.
to see that. I was like, well, that's really cool to see there are a lot of first time competitors here.
You had a few people in that one too, right, Evan? The Clash.
Yeah, I had 4 or 5
Yeah.
girls.
Yeah, and it was
I had
pretty competitive.
four in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on the show day content. Lexie shot a bunch of stuff, so George is getting it edited. We have a bunch of show day videos coming out pretty soon. If you're not following well, if you're on the YouTube, that's the channel they put them on. But yeah, the Pro Physique Studio page. Yeah, you had the young lady that won her class at Hurricane.
Yeah. So
She was like class H, Evan.
yeah, Paige.
Was,
Oh no, wait. Oh,
No,
I know.
no, she got second at both
Okay.
those. Yeah, she got
Okay.
second at both those. Yeah.
oh, was it Taylor, Lexie, your girl that won her class at Hurricane?
That was Paige. So
Paige,
she,
okay.
yeah, Paige, and then she did Clash as well. Yeah, and now we're in our off season.
Yeah, so for those that were paying attention, the girl that won the overall at the Hurricane NPC, she went to the Caribbean Grand Prix and won the overall there and got her pro card.
That's not I saw that girl at Lakeland the week before with Lexie. Or a
Bro,
few
she
weeks
was
before.
solid. I was like,
Well,
she
when,
goes to
when she
nationals.
walked on stage at Lakeland, I looked at Lexie. I was like, that girl's winning whatever pro card she wants.
Yeah, she was.
So that
she
did
was
not
ready.
shock me at all. I didn't know
I
she
actually
did,
looked
but
her up.
that does not
Yeah.
shock me.
Her name's Caitlin Baldwin. Fantastic from head to
Yep.
toe. So yeah,
She's been competing for like 12 years or something, and she's only like
I saw
26.
I did a little digging and I saw she took off like 3 years and
Yeah.
it paid off. Like I thought she might do the Atlantic Coast Pro if she's a Floridian and she just turned pro in the Caribbean, and there's a lot of crossover there between the people that were in the Caribbean and people. She wasn't there though. And to be fair,
Very impressive.
that show was wide open. The girl that won that show, I had never seen her before. Taylor.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Yeah.
actually, so at the Atlantic Coast, for those listening, so the girl that won the pro show, Pro Bikini, so she actually competed at Hurricane. Because I remember seeing her at Hurricane, and I thought she looked great. I don't think she placed at Hurricane. And then she comes to the show and wins, and she got first and Angelica second. So yeah, that was neat to see.
Yeah, it was, and Angelica wasn't off. Like she was just
No.
better. Angelica looked next to Taylor. I thought Angelica had thinner legs and arms, really good conditioning, really good shape. Just Taylor was just a little bit more dense in all the big body parts and had really great shape. Not overly conditioned, but very good. It was a good winner for pro bikini.
Yeah.
That I was like, okay, this is what you want from a pro bikini winner. The show was underwhelming in my opinion. Like a lot of the people that I was expecting to show up and look the part did not.
Yeah, I noticed, I think part of why the show was so long in the morning was I noticed Jack's really working them with comparisons. I mean, really working them, especially like the Masters pros too. I noticed that because it was
he was
kinda
even
long.
doing that with the NPC. So in the morning, I noticed multiple times if a class was close and like novice and this is NPC or Masters, he was having the girls walk. So he was really putting in the effort, which listen, I love it. Like as a
Oh
coach,
yeah.
you want your athlete to get every look they can. And then once they get the middle, you want them to go, see you tonight.
Yep, exactly.
There was a lot of last minute, like, okay, swap. Like he was really walking them. So Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a good show. My only complaint is the expo hall was freezing. And I'm not the only one that noticed that. I was like, I know
I
because
don't know that there's a way around that. It's like
know,
100,000 square feet. It's just,
yeah. I just felt bad for the competitors backstage. I'm like, they have like the bikini girls have to be miserable.
well, and it wasn't even hot outside. A couple times I was so cold, I walked outside and it was like 78 and a breeze. And I'm like, well, this isn't helping much. You know, like usually you walk out and it's like 94 and you're like, okay,
Mhm.
my skin can cook for a second before I go back in.
Right, right.
So, and honestly, like there was 3 pro shows on the one weekend. So you knew the lineups were going to be a little bit more spaced out. Had you put all the top 3 from all the shows in one show, now you're probably getting a pretty gnarly first call out. Um, the girl that won the show in Hawaii, Woo B, she's won. I know she's won before, but I've seen her in top call outs many times. In fact,
Yeah.
gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think, yeah, I've seen her many times and she's always in that mix. She's got a really great structure. And so congrats to Woo on going back to the Olympia. And then what was the other show? That was Lana won that one. So yeah, then you had this show with this Taylor. So the lineups were spaced out, which is an advantage. Now this weekend we've got the Kansas City Pro, very small lineup, like 12.
Yeah. It's well, this is the first year they've done the show, so I
Mhm.
wonder if, I don't know if how many people really knew about it. I know I've known about it just because I have a client doing it, but before then I was like, wait, Kansas City Pro Show, what? And so it's the first time they're doing it. So, and it's, I believe it's what, the last Olympia qualifier of the year. So,
Probably for a while. I haven't looked at this.
Yeah.
No. There's one more. There's a show in California.
oh, okay, okay. So it's one of the last ones. So yeah, it is relatively small, but I honestly feel like that's just due to the fact that it's inaugural year. I mean, I didn't know about it until I heard about it from my client a while ago. So we'll see. But there's some good names on the list. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And then, I know before we did this podcast episode, like yesterday, we were gonna try to do a little bit of research too on what we could find in terms of the natural shows in 2025. And it's still kind of hard to pinpoint like the exact specifics, but I know that at least like from the research I did yesterday, I saw a lot more natural shows, at least on the calendar. And I think the biggest surprise, and we may have talked about this last week, was that the Pittsburgh show this year, the Pittsburgh NPC show, is going to be a natural pro qualifier.
Tyler made an announcement on Instagram, like a reel, like the day before the Ben Weider. I reposted it on my story, basically saying that they're going to take the Ben Weider and put it at the Pittsburgh. At least I don't think they're going to do a natural pro like Olympia qualifier, but they are doing a pro card, which is interesting because that's might be the week before Junior USA's. Because I
Yeah.
usually have girls do Pittsburgh if I want them to go to Junior USA's or Junior Nationals, right? So it's right around that time, depending on the date. So you're going to have girls that are maybe doing that and then Junior USA's right after, which Junior USA's last year had 52 in bikini, which is crazy tiny. It was up to 180 a couple of years before that. So 2 things could happen. You could have a lot of people go to Pittsburgh, though you have to qualify. So we'll talk about those rules. Or B, they could nobody could go there. They could go to Junior USA's because there's 4 pro cards there in the open. I don't know. It's
Do you have to qualify for that show? Because it was qualification for the Ben Weider, but do you have to qualify
yes.
for the Pittsburgh one
Yes.
too?
Currently, the qualifications have been you just must compete in a drug tested event. But I heard, and this is where I struggled. I actually had a call with Jim Mannion yesterday and asked him about this stuff. And I don't think he's that involved in it. I think it's Tyler, right? So he was like, I don't know. I'll have Tyler call you. I don't think Tyler's going to call me. But I asked, where is the comprehensive list of information for this natural? And there isn't one that I could find. So for the Ben Weider this year, you had to do in the United States only, you had to do a natural event. You could place 19 out of 19. But when I was at the show this weekend, I had one of the coaches tell me he was going to have a bunch of girls sign up for the show in off season, go on stage in off season to get their qualification for the Pittsburgh. And he goes, but they changed the rules. Now you have to place top 2 at a natural show.
Interesting. Okay.
I initially thought, oh, this Ben Weider is going to be small this year because of all these new qualification rules. Because in the past, it was just an open show. Wrong. It was bigger. And this may speak to the mindset of natural competitors. This is the first year they instituted polygraphs before the show. And I know of at least, I was told 3 bikini pros that traveled there to compete were not allowed to compete because they failed their polygraph.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if they're going to announce that, if they're going to talk about that, if that's, but
Not
they
yeah.
went in for their polygraph. They
Yeah.
came out, they were told they cannot compete. And then the winners had to get urinalysis.
They really need to come out with a very clear understanding of what natural is to the NPC too. Is it lifetime natural? Is it 5 years not taking? Like, what is
Yeah,
their
they announced it
their
was a
firm rule?
3-year drug-free policy a few weeks before, which probably wasn't enough time. The polygraph process, you know, because I come from natural bodybuilding world. So when you call something natural, that, you know, I have an opinion on it. I think it should be done a certain way.
Yeah,
You can't urinalysis somebody and know what they were on a month ago, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, right? It's a very short time frame. You can tell
not
what they're
most
on
stuff.
right now. Polygraph catches a lot of people because they can ask you anything. They were asking the athletes, have you ever done anything illegal in your life? Of course, we've all done illegal shit. Maybe not Lexie, but
Yeah. No
but
comment.
that's not the question that's going to get you kicked out of the competition, you know. So the polygraphers were actually asking real questions. They showed them a list of all the banned substances. So you're seeing these things. If you see something on that list and then they ask you a question, you're going to get nervous, you're going to fail, right? And so that's how it should be done, in my opinion. That's, you know, like,
It's
put it
good.
this way. I was a natural athlete and I got nervous for those tests because it's like, it's all down to this moment. Like if they tell you you can't compete, and I know one girl who traveled internationally to compete and was told she couldn't compete.
Well, it's like getting pulled over by the cops, right? Even if you didn't do anything illegal, you're afraid that
Oh,
maybe did I do
Just
something
gonna say that
illegal?
you read my mind because every time I'm driving and I have a cop behind me, even if I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just like white knuckling it. So yeah, it's like that same concept.
yeah. So I think adding the polygraph is going to really help with. I don't think many people right now in the NPC have a morality issue. There are clearly 2 options. And just to be clear, TRT is banned for natural bodybuilding, right? So like you've got a place to compete in the NPC, you've got a place to compete if you're drug free. There should be 0 crossing the barriers. Now, there are some WADA things that are kind of funky, but
Yeah. And if anyone wants to debate the TRT thing being able to compete in a natural, well, it's just getting back to my normal levels. That's absolutely not the case because if you know anyone that's actually had blood work done post a natural bodybuilding show as a male and female, but as a male, your test is in the gutter,
yeah,
completely bottomed
yeah,
out.
yeah,
So keeping that or taking that exogenous testosterone to keep you up at your natural levels is absolutely an advantage in natural bodybuilding.
right. And I think you can be on like ADHD medicine if you have a prescription, like, you know, but those are not anabolic in nature. And, you know, so like, I think there are some extenuating circumstances, but just make sure before you compete in a natural show, you know the rules so you don't go in there and be nervous on the test. You know, I had a couple athletes ask me, oh, I'm taking Core Hard. I'm like, Core Hard it's completely legal. It's completely legal by WADA, everything, right? It's just DIM and ashwagandha. So like, you just, as long as you understand but that polygraph is huge because they had never done that before.
Yeah, that is really neat. I'm just really looking forward to just seeing kind of the evolution of things in 2025 because I think with anything, with any industry, with any sport, like you see things coming in waves, right? So I think like this year, I mean, maybe even last year, like you kind of have, at least I know I have seen a lot more girls jump on the train of, pushing some anabolics and like, to each their own. There's nothing wrong with that, but we may see, kind of a new age of things where people are going a little bit more of that natural route. So I'm kind of excited to see, what happens.
Well, I'm pro anabolics when they're done right. I think the problem I run into is when the athlete doesn't understand the consequences of what they're doing. Their coaches are misleading them. Um, So yeah, anabolics can be very beneficial, especially for bodybuilding, especially for the sport, especially because now there's this new age of education where you can actually go into a clinic and get tests and get things done. So that I'm not opposed to that side of the sport. I just think it's cool that there's options, that there's,
Yeah.
there's possibilities for everyone.
And people can debate this up one side and down the other, but like anabolics done right and at low dosages, if you're talking like TRT and through clinics and good clinics, I'm not talking about drug pushing clinics, I'm talking about good clinics, can actually make a prep healthier for you in the long run than it can be naturally, just because of all the side effects of doing things naturally, like driving your test literally down into the absolute gutter after that. So there are some benefits to it. I'm not saying that's the case for every single person out there in the world, but it's defining kind of what's healthy and what's best for each individual is different. It is different. And again, we're talking about things that are responsible, right? And most now also preface this, most people that compete at a high level are not doing drugs at a healthy way.
Yeah, and I think you guys comment on the YouTube, but I'd like to have a hormone therapy expert come on, not a coach, right? Someone that we believe is an expert in this area, talk about the right way to do things. Because I think that would be a good conversation to have. And I love the conversation of being able to help people ask questions of whoever's guiding them. Hey, I heard from this expert this you should, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm very careful what to say and not say publicly like this. Privately, I have conversations with people that are a little bit more candid, but very careful what I put out publicly. So I'd like to get an expert on here from Aspire to have those conversations. But yeah, I've noticed there are some benefits, Evan, to anabolics and prep and keeping more muscle and things like that. But as someone who's always done bodybuilding naturally myself, there's this weird thing where when you're natural and you diet down and you get shredded, and very few people get more shredded than me, there's a time where your body just goes, it's over, dude, you're done. And you listen, right? And so it's probably good for me to get in and prep, do a show and get the heck out, right? I think, that's the anabolics can extend your prep, but I think this is one thing I notice, especially with bikini competitors, is they compete nonstop. Their anabolics are nonstop. They're
Yeah.
aging and their voice is changing and they're chasing. I think I talked about it last week. I called it summit fever, right? You get so close to the summit that you start doing things that you probably wouldn't have done if someone asked you before.
Yeah, you see that all the time. I feel like you see it especially with a lot of like at the pro level, people who get really close to that Olympia qualification. Like it's just one more show, maybe I can
Yeah,
get it.
it's
So
one more show. It's 3 more weeks on prep. It's then and then
yeah.
you reverse engineer it. I mean, not for nothing. If you look at the best bodybuilders in the world, they're doing the Olympia
Yep.
and they're done, right? And so they've got that ebb and flow of hormones in and out of their body. Not for nothing. Some of these bikini competitors, they've been on prep for 3-4 years straight. Arnold, Olympia, a couple pro shows in between. Arnold, Olympia, a couple pro shows between. Like it, it,
Mhm.
it starts to take its toll.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I've wondered about this more so in the past year, but I'm just curious what some of these athletes like that I specifically follow very closely that have kind of taken that route, like what are they going to look like in 10 years? Like, I'm just very curious because I don't know. And then are they going to regret going down the road that they did? I don't know. I'm just very curious to see, especially because the PEDs age people so quickly, like what these people are looking like in 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to think about and consider, right? I mean, I think the only like guy example you can really talk about this, especially in the open realm. That's why so many open bodybuilders only compete like once, maybe twice a year, is because of what most of them have to do to push that. And then you have your exception, like our Olympia champ, like Samson, right? Um, I mean, the reason he's able to compete so much is because he runs so little. And that's the reason he's able to compete so much. If he was to run what a lot of the other people have to run, there's no way he could continue to doing what he's doing and look the way he looks.
Well, and there it comes down to it, the natural talent. Like
Yep.
Samson is big by nature. He's just enhancing that enough.
Hmm.
Probably,
I mean,
you would say the same thing about like Lee Haney and Phil Heath. Those guys probably didn't need to do a whole pharmacy to
nope,
look freaky. Um,
nope.
they were freaky from the beginning. And so I think honestly that's the same thing with bikini. I mean, a lot of the girls are, they're chasing the criteria. They're trying to fill in those muscles that are missing based on the criteria. Whereas girls that are a little bit more naturally athletic, they can get there without enhancements. or very, very little, and they can stay there a lot easier. So yeah, but you know, to each their own. That's what this sport is. You got to choose. And
And I know we've said it before on this podcast, but just like a disclaimer, if anybody is listening to this episode and they're like brand new to the sport, just because the NPC is not like, just because there are non-drug tested shows does not mean, especially in bikini, that everybody is using something on stage. I mean, especially at the amateur bikini level, you're going to get a lot of girls that are natural on stage. So just because it's not a drug tested federation, does not mean everybody's using something.
Yeah, it's
Very
not
true.
drug required. It's
Right.
up to you. They're just not testing. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm naive, but I feel like most people are doing their shows early on as natural athletes and then kind of figuring it out from there.
Right.
But you know,
I mean, I have a couple girls next year that can win their pro cards naturally, and they want to win it in a normal national show. They don't want to
yeah,
win it in the natural side. They want to go against the absolute best they could possibly go against for that, which I think is awesome, right? And I think
Yeah.
both of them have a very good chance of doing, like, very good chance of doing it.
yeah, yeah. Talent and genetics overcomes just about everything, right? And especially in bikini, which is the lowest muscle level required to go to the Olympia. I think, you know, just what I know of athletes. I mean, I had this conversation with Janet Liu. She won the Olympia as a lifetime natural athlete. So, and people can debate that, but go meet her. She's older than all the top 5 Olympians, and she looks younger and sounds better.
Yeah, talent, genetics, and honestly, like I think there's a lot to be said too for consistency over time. You know,
Yeah.
that's why you see a lot of, I feel like, I don't know, I almost feel like the prime spot for a lot of bikini athletes is like in the early 30s, right? It's, I mean, not to say that there's not like successful younger competitors, but I feel like when you accumulate that experience, that consistency, it can definitely pay off.
So from my experience in natural bodybuilding, the best natural bodybuilders are in their 40s because building muscle is an accumulation over time. You're basically just slowly stacking that up. You know, even someone like Brian DaCosta, who I coached last year, who won WNBF, the biggest natural bodybuilding competition in the world, he won the overall bodybuilding title. He's still rather young for the sport, genetically gifted. If he keeps doing what he's doing for another 10 years, good Lord, like he's going to be an absolute monster. He already is, but that's just what the sport is. It's just you know, you can't speed up that process. You have to put in the time, the consistency to change your physique. And it's hard to beat somebody that's been doing it for 20 years after 3 years. Like it just is.
Right.
So when you go to natural bodybuilding shows, and especially the pro divisions, yeah, the competitors are in their 30s, late 30s, early 40s, even sometimes in their 50s. Marshall Johnson, who I used to compete with, is in his early 60s now, and he's still winning pro shows. It's just hard to beat someone that's just consistent and doing it for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, I just want to see more information, more defined, you know, because all I know right now is the Ben Wieder and the Pittsburgh show. I've heard of another pro show in Kansas City next year that's a natural pro show. But again, these are like things that are out there that I haven't like seen.
I did already see these were not like pro qualifier shows, but I did see a good handful of natural shows that like regional shows that were being announced like for earlier in the year next year. I
Yeah.
did that. I want to say also there's, ooh, don't quote me. I think I may have seen something about a natural pro qualifier in Vegas next year. I don't know.
It
Don't
would
quote
make sense. It would make sense. I mean, I think if you're seeing the numbers of these shows match the NPC shows, it's a good chance for the promoters to do 2 shows in one. You know, like Tim Gardner had a show on Saturday and a show on Sunday, and they were both pretty full.
me. Yeah.
You know, so you've already got the venue, you've already got the staff there, you've already got the setup. I think it makes
And how
sense.
were the number? I'm assuming the numbers this year were much higher than they were for the natural show last year.
Way higher, dude. Way higher. I mean, what's shocking to me is the number of men at these shows and the quality. If you see the guy that won the classic physique and the men's physique, it was 2 separate dudes. Bro, I was backstage like, wow, like these guys look insane. But the men overall looked great. you know, even the masters men, I was like, let me see if I got on the stage, how I would look. Those dudes look good. So yeah, the numbers were definitely higher, you know, and this was the second year of the show. So the first year, like you said, people don't know about it.
Mhm.
Natural bodybuilders plan a year ahead. You're not picking a show 12 weeks out. You're like, oh, I'm going to do this show next year. That's the way my brain always worked. So also of note, last year, Ben Wieder was on the same weekend as WNBF Worlds. WNBF Worlds gets 300 to 400 athletes, international. It's the biggest natural bodybuilding kind of world championships. It was on the same day. Literally, it was in Seattle, and Ben Wieder was in DC. So Ben Wieder may have grown just by not being on the same weekend, because I did talk to one young lady, and she got her pro card and figure, who was going to WNBF Worlds the next week.
Got
So
interesting.
maybe giving natural athletes multiple opportunities is a good plan too. Don't cross your streams.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that could have been a big reason. A lot of people are like, you know, hey, I want that IFBB pro card, that Olympia qualification, and then I can go do WNBF Worlds. Now, I don't know the rules. You know, there's some rules. If you have a pro card in
Yeah,
one organization, you're not supposed
there's
to do this.
rules.
And
I don't
be
think
careful.
that's gonna be heavily frowned upon. I was not gonna say anything, but
Be careful. Yeah. Especially if you want to be the title athlete for an organization. Like if you want to be the best of this organization, they're not going to want you going over here and doing something else.
if you
Right.
win your pro card in the IFBB and you think you're going to go compete in another organization, it's not going to happen.
So there's a window after you win your pro card where you can accept or not accept it. I think if you're in that window and you haven't accepted it, but once you accept an IFBB pro card, that contract pretty much states the rules. And they will enforce them.
They
But
absolutely will enforce
I'm
it,
also
yes.
talking about the natural organizations, because they've got to protect their assets,
Mhm.
or and that's up to them how they set those rules up. Um, but again, you're going to see tons of pictures from Ben Wieder. You probably already seen them all the people that won. You're not going to see anything from WNBF Worlds. They just don't have that, at least historically, that social media power.
For sure.
So
Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else you guys want to say before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I mean, we
I think we're
wanted to talk
good.
about natural bodybuilding. I think that's it. It's still very
Yeah.
unformed, is what I want to say.
Yeah,
It's
we didn't have
still
any
shaping.
we didn't have any like crazy specifics, but we'll continue to share things with you guys as things are put out.
Because we're wanting to know as much as everyone else is. I promise you that, because I have a bunch of athletes asking about it, and I'm just telling them as when I get information, you'll know.
Well, I'll say
So hopefully
this.
we hear something.
I had Alexandria won the Florida Natural, that Grand Prix down there. They gave out some of the best trophies you've ever seen. I got this trophy for being the coach of the year. Look at the size of that trophy. I was like, this is amazing.
Whoa. That
Yeah.
gold one in the back?
Yeah, I got that for coach of the year for the Grand Prix Surge's show.
Oh.
Basically because Alexandria won 2 overall. She won the natural and the tested. And then this weekend, Taylor won the natural overall at Tim's show. Go look at my Instagram. I mean, the trophy's a giant cup, not for nothing. Like, athletes like winning stuff. Like it's very cool that they're getting something for winning. I don't know. I like that.
Wow, that is huge. It's like as big as her, basically.
Yeah, and then not for nothing. The Ben Wieder is great because they get the Olympic qualifications, but they're basically just getting medals, or like Lorna got like a trophy, you know, whereas Taylor got like a trophy, a cup, a sash. She got a wolf pack bag. She got a ring. She got a custom belt. Like Tim goes all out for his awards.
That's really
Yes.
awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited to see the sport. It's been a, interesting year for the sport this year, but it changes every year to some capacity. So I'm excited to see what comes of 2025.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh is going to be very interesting. I think that's something that we should attend and just.
Oh, I'm after going last year, I'm like, I
sure.
want to go every year moving forward. It was fun.
Well, and this year they're going to be doing a full festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if that same Airbnb is available.
I doubt it. but we'll get
Yeah.
something nearby.
Yeah,
If Evan comes, we're gonna have to have another room because he
Yeah,
snored
true.
at Universe and I couldn't sleep.
Who did?
Evan snored at Universe. I didn't sleep.
I'll be leaner this year.
Oh.
I'll be snoring.
Got to get those like earplugs and yeah, that's the
Yeah,
worst.
Evan, you can only stay with me if you're below 220. That's the rule.
Deal. 220? I'll be below 220. How about below
225?
225?
All right.
Oh goodness. All right.
And
Well,
I won't eat candy before I go to sleep.
Was it candy or was it Slurpees? I forget. You guys were
It's
being...
both, I think.
Poor Kate was freaking driving you all around to get Slurpees and candy.
oh goodness.
I gave her a good Uber rating.
All right, guys. Well, be sure to comment below if you love Lexie.
Oh my gosh, you're just gonna feed my dopamine levels up on a Monday.
I was actually going to say comment below for Command the Stage in March of 2024 in Fort Lauderdale, 2025 in Fort Lauderdale. It's a very limited space, so as soon as we announce it, swoop them up.
Follow all of us and then the Pro Physique account because that's where you'll get the information.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yep. The Team Pro Physique page and the Pro Physique Studio page. Those are the two best. I think we're going to be combining some of the social media stuff. It's a little bit scattered between the challenge, so we'll
Right.
but believe me, you'll know about it. We'll talk about it on here too, because
We will.
historically a lot of the people that go want to go every year. So I like to give everybody a chance to get some stats.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye guys.